Kia ora everyone, welcome to These Guys Got Next, our NBA basketball podcast where we dissect the NBA and deliver our takes and analysis from the bench. I'm Elijah Fa'afiu, he's Ravindu Pathirana. Ravi, how is everything on your end?
Yeah, man. Awesome. Had a pretty hectic week this week, but on that, yeah, had a few NBA games to take the stress off the work. How are you?
Good, yeah, there's plenty to talk about in the NBA. Um, I don't know where to begin. Actually, let's just start with some breaking news that actually just dropped on us before we recorded. The Memphis Grizzlies have pretty much, I guess, surprised the NBA by firing Taylor Jenkins, their coach. I guess the timing of it is probably the most surprising part of it. 9 games left in the regular season. They're currently fifth in the West with a record of 44-29. Rav, why do you think the Grizzlies decided to make this move now?
Just baffles me. Like honestly, it's 9 games left in the season, coming up to the playoffs. Could have made like a end of season kind of wrap things up with the team as is, and I get they're on a bit of a losing streak at the moment. Oh, we've lost 4 of the last 5 really, and 8 of 11 since All Star break. They were second and now tied for fourth with the Lakers. So but could have kind of seen how things gone off. But maybe the assistant coach had a part to play with his play style that is affecting affecting sounds bad, but yeah, the way that he's kind of crafted his play style, I think suits the Grizzlies. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the interesting part is that the Grizzlies have already named the interim coach, which is one of the assistants, Tuomas Isalo. He was highly regarded when he joined the Grizzlies in the offseason because he was a European coach. He's from Finland. He won the Euro Cup with Paris Basketball, and they had an offensive rating of 126.8, which is very, very high. Like compared to the NBA this season, it would be higher than any team in the NBA this season. His offense relies heavily on pick and rolls, which you would think would favor a guy like Ja Morant within whatever bigs he has. I think there was a bit of a disconnect, it seems like, between Asalo and the rest of the Grizzlies staff, like Jenkins and his assistants, because it wasn't just Jenkins that got fired, it was his assistants as well. So basically, that whole staff got overhauled. I think their staff sort of went away from what Isalo was trying to implement, but there were sprinkles of Isalo's offense that showed with the Grizzlies this season, like their pace. I think they're number one in the league in pace this season, and I think Isalo's influence is heavy on that. But I think because he didn't have that full control of the offense, the Grizzlies probably weren't as good as they were, as they could have been on offense. So the front office have just decided to just get rid of Jenkins and his staff and just giving full control to Asalo. But again, the timing is so weird because it's 9 games left in the regular season. You're now giving this assistant coach, this interim coach, 9 games plus the playoffs to sort of prove like how much can you prove in that time? Like this is pretty much an audition, right?
Yeah, 100%. But also, do you reckon because of the fact that he was turned around as interim head coach straight away, and with his background and success that he's had in Euro Cup and overseas, do you reckon that had a part to play in terms of he might have been pulling the strings from behind the scenes and Taylor Jenkins being the front man, and the organization might have caught on because they turned around really
Oh,
fast.
yeah. I don't think he like undercut him. Like I don't think that's his sort of intention. But I think my theory, and I'll take the tinfoil hat this week, Rav, is that I do think Isalo, because he was so highly regarded as an assistant, I feel like the Grizzlies front office must have caught on that Isalo may have been approached or other NBA teams were trying to get his services. So they were trying to provide a path for Isalo to take control of the Grizzlies before, basically take control of him before he could go anywhere else. So that's sort of my theory on what happened there. But we'll see what happens with the Grizzlies, what their offense sort of looks like. I think the other thing is that to most NBA fans, like this is a shock, Jenkins firing. But I think just doing a bit of research around Memphis Grizzlies circles, I think they were a little bit pissed with how Taylor Jenkins was handling like game situations, especially late in games. Like, do you remember when like the Grizzlies lost by like 3 game winners in a row. There was that week where they had that. Like all those situations could have been avoided, and moments like that where personnel is probably the wrong personnel that was on. You probably had the wrong guys defending um, opposing players. I think that's sort of what led to, or that sort of built up to what led to Jenkins firing those sort of game moments and game situations. So yeah, they just decided to make the change, and we'll see what happens with the Grizzlies moving forward. Do you think, just before we move on, do you think this puts the Grizzlies sort of under threat come playoffs? Like, have you sort of written them off now that this coaching change has happened?
I don't think I'll write them off. Just because I think especially with Tomas now getting full reign of the offense, it will suit these guys a lot better because it's that kind of pick and roll with Iverson cuts and finding spacing. So with slashes like Ja Morant, we can put Jalen Wells in there with Desmond Bain as well, and with the two like towers of Edie and JJJ. Like you said, it'll be more of an audition for the rest of the series and see how this translates into the playoffs. But yeah, I do have high hopes given this guy's play style and their pace as well. So hopefully it pans out.
For sure. And so before this news broke of Taylor Jenkins being fired, we were actually going to talk about the Chicago Bulls backcourt and how amazing they've been since the All-Star break. Josh Giddey, he's escaped the allegations against him, and Coby White of being one of the best backcourt duos since the All-Star break. The Bulls have won 4 straight. They've won 9 of 11. They're firing at the moment. I think they're 9th in the East right now, so they're right there in that play-in spot. But, geez, let's talk about the Lakers in that last 12 seconds, because I don't think I've seen so much happen in the space of 12 seconds. Rav, I'll let you sort of take us through what you saw during that time.
Mate, look, this kind of came about. One of my bosses reached out. He's like, "Oh, yeah, have you seen this?" And I was like, "Oh, wow!" Like the 3 plays or 4 plays that led up to it was just unbelievable. Like the whole, I guess, last 5 minutes of the game was just such a good watch, man. Like trying to break that down and seeing how Patrick Williams is. I get LeBron overcommitted, unlike it happens sometimes. Patrick Williams not the greatest 3-point shooter. So understandably, LeBron does sag off a wee bit, but get that contest. But yeah, I think it wasn't his day. He might have just used up his luck the day before against the Pacers where he got that tip in. But yeah, man, and then that kind of shaky pass and Giddey intercepted it off to a Coby White 3. And then, wow, Giddey just takes it home after, I don't know. What do you think of that defense that led to that Austin Reeves bucket down the line?
I mean, yeah, probably not the best offense on like, I thought Austin Reeves had won the game then. I think I was a little bit surprised that was Austin Reeves that was actually taking that final shot instead of LeBron. But yeah, I guess LeBron's luck had run out, so he decided to pass it on to Austin Reeves and let him have a go. I think on the half court buzzer beater from Josh Giddey, that's an amazing play. And he can say that he shot that over LeBron too. Like he must have like photos as a screensaver or something of him, with the pose and LeBron standing in the background, watching on. I think it's the deepest game-winning buzzer beater in Bulls franchise history from half court, which is amazing. And Giddey finished that game with 25 points, 14 rebounds, 11 assists, triple double, and a couple of steals. Early in the week, he nearly had a quadruple double against the same opponents, 15, 10, 17, and 8 steals. But yeah, Josh Giddey has been amazing. In March, he's averaging 22.5 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 9.5 assists per game. So he's averaging nearly a triple-double. In his last 10 games, 220 points, 96 rebounds, 100 assists. He's one of 8 players to record at least those totals over a 10-game stretch, which joins Michael Jordan, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, LeBron James, Magic Johnson. That is some
That's
elite
elite
company.
Yeah, man. Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'm like, I guess in Josh Giddey's sake, like we were sort of ridiculing when he first got traded to the Bulls because he didn't really fit well with what OKC were looking for as an identity. I think But I think we sort of wrote off the Bulls when they traded for Giddey. But I think Giddey's sort of proven that, you give him full control, you give him the keys to the offense, and he can deliver for you. And he's found a great backcourt partner in Coby White as well. Like, what have you noticed from Coby in particular as of late?
I mean, back-to-back Eastern Conference Player of the Week. You know, he's in March. He's averaging 29 and a half, 4.5 and rebounds and 4.1 assists. Like, the man's balling. Like, over the last 14 games, he's had 20 plus points. Like, we had that conversation about, if the Giddey, who the Bulls choose in terms of their backcourt in the future, right? Whether they choose to stay with Giddey or if they want to shift towards a more scoring option of Coby White. But if these guys can play the way that they have been playing and implement in such an efficient way and complement each other's games, I think, this will create a nice little future for the Bulls. Maybe once they trade off Vooch as well. But again, just, man, awesome work by Coby. Yeah, had me second guessing the decision about, or the call that I made about Coby White needs to go. But nah, he's here to stay, man, making a stand.
Yeah, I think this last month has pretty much solidified these two as the backcourt for Chicago moving forward. Like, you look at the rest of the roster, like Lonzo's there, but that depends on how much he's going to be able to play. And then there's other guys like, Dasumu's a guard slash wing, but I think Giddey and White are the answer in the backcourt. In terms of the rest of the team, like Marcus Buzelis, I've been really impressed with him. He's shown some flashes as a rookie, and I'm glad he's actually getting some time now to sort of prove himself and work his way in the NBA. And like you mentioned it, like if they can move on from Nikola Vucevic and that big contract and maybe draft a young big in the upcoming draft, then that's sort of their future set. So yeah, we'll see what happens there in Chicago.
Yeah, man. Potentially, Kaman Maluak from Duke.
From Duke, yeah.
Yeah, ends up there, which, I mean, you mentioned in the last episode. So hopefully they come into that lottery pick area. So fingers crossed they can walk away with something good, or even make up a trade package with a couple of drafts picks to get a decent young big from somewhere to be part of that core.
For sure. And I guess another couple names from the draft, like Derek Queen from Maryland, who had like a buzzer beater during the NCAA tournament. And then JT Toppin from Texas Tech. So probably another couple of names to keep an eye out on for the upcoming draft. But yeah, promising stuff over in Chicago. Let's head to the Dallas Mavericks, and they don't need to worry about forfeiting anymore. Their players are all coming back. The cavalry has returned in the form of Anthony Davis. He's back after missing his last 18 games with an adductor strain. Returned this week against the Nets and the Magic. Probably not the big scorelines that we were expecting from AD, but again, they're sort of ramping up his minutes as he comes back from injury. And the Mavs are now 3-0 with AD in the lineup. What do you sort of, how do you think this sort of helps out the Mavericks as they sort of fight for their play-in spot? Because right now they're fighting with the Suns, who I'll give the Suns credit. Before they got blown out by the Celtics, they had won 4 in a row. Like, I think they beat the Cavs in one of those games as well. So that's going to be a nice little back and forth duel for that 10th spot between the Mavs and the Suns. How do you sort of see things?
I mean, the Suns are half a game behind, I think, at the 11th seed at the moment. But man, this is going to be fun, as with all things. When it comes to playoff time and towards mid to end of April, we really start to see things go down. So I'm happy that 80's back on the court, and this I guess funeral processions maybe had him waking up like the Undertaker. So, man, let's see what happens. But I'm excited for him to be back and playing, and once he ramps up, this can become a nice little team, given the health. So, for Nico Harrison's sake, gotta hope that this comes around very well for these guys.
And keep an eye on, I think the 9th seed is the Kings, and they've been a bit iffy as of late, so they could easily drop down as well. So, but right now I'd say it's the Mavs and Suns fighting for that 10th spot, but the Kings could easily drop down as well. So Yeah, things are getting exciting as it comes down to the wire over in the Western Conference. Jimmy Butler returned to Miami this week, but Miami actually got the latest laugh, I guess. They crushed Golden State 112-86. Big games from Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. Jimmy Butler only put up 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists. Um, what is your assess of the way Jimmy handled himself upon his return to Miami?
I think even before the game started, he said, "Oh, it was just another game." So really downplaying your game of the week, Eli. From last week.
Oh no,
Yeah, but yeah, and he just left without dapping up any of his former teammates or coaches. So yeah, I mean, look, there are certain ways you handle things. Understandably, how everything went down with the Heat and Jimmy, but also like I don't know where to stand about this. Maybe I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I think it was a GM or one of the owners of the Heat was quite upset that the Heat fans gave Jimmy a standing ovation on his return. Um, do you reckon that's valid, or do you reckon they should have?
no, it's not. No, it's not valid. Because then why would you play him a tribute video? Like,
There you
what's the
go.
whole point of doing the tribute video? Like, if you didn't want him, if you didn't want the fans to give a standing ovation, don't give him a tribute video. Like,
Yeah,
just let him come out cold, like to booze and all that. Yeah, that just goes against the grain of. Yeah, that's the argument there.
yeah,
Let's just bring up briefly Andrew Wiggins' 42-point game. I think I've reversed the curse on the Heat because I talked about their 10-game losing streak, and then immediately Andrew Wiggins comes back, 42 points, and they snap their losing streak. And I think they've won their last 3 as of
yeah.
recording. So you're welcome, Miami, by the way. But yeah, great job. We talked about they needed Andrew Wiggins to come back to help this
100%.
team out, and Wiggins has been that guy. He's been great. Like every time he's taken to the court, he's been awesome for Miami. But yeah, Miami get the win over Jimmy Butler, and we'll just move on from there. Some sad news regarding Damian Lillard. He's got deep vein thrombosis in his right calf, so basically blood clots. Same thing that occurred with Victor Wembanyama that ruled him out for the season. Lillard, they say that he's out indefinitely, so not exactly season ending. So I guess they're hoping that he'll be back during the playoffs, but I just think it's unlikely at this point. He is on blood thinning medication, which stabilizes the blood clot a little bit. But we'll see what happens with the Bucks moving forward, because now that means a lot of reliance upon Giannis and Kyle Kuzma. I guess what's your sort of view on the Bucks, because they're currently fighting for a spot in the top 4 with like the Pacers and the Pistons. What does this loss mean for Milwaukee?
Just big scoring loss, man. Like that's the obvious answer here. Like Giannis loses his Robin in a sense because like when you look at guys like Kuz, Gary Trent and KPJ, Ryan Rollins, for example, who are candidates or potential candidates in the backcourt. Kuz plays that 3-4 position. Aren't scoring threats, or very streaky scoring threats. So that consistent, I guess, 20 plus points a game scorer is just someone needs to fill up the boot somewhere, like, or it literally just means Giannis has to take on that load himself, which is really concerning, especially but less or just over a month left in the regular season. And then when they go in deep into the playoffs, which, yeah, fingers crossed, man. I'm really hoping Dame comes back and is able to contribute to this team.
Yeah, for sure. But it's a big loss for sure. Especially now that they've dropped to 6th in the East. The Pacers and the Pistons have now sort of leapfrogged them. So I'm not sure how we'll see how it will affect the Bucks moving forward. I know we sort of mentioned LeBron earlier, and we may have put the blame on him for the Lakers losing to Chicago, but let's give him some credit. You brought it up, the tip in at the buzzer off the Luka miss against the Pacers, his 8th career game-winning buzzer, which puts him tied with Kobe Bryant and my guy Joe Johnson.
So
I
Joe,
I, I love Joe Johnson. Like when I think of clutch, Joe Johnson is the guy I think of.
100%.
But so I'm glad Joe Johnson got his flowers this week. He got mentioned in the same tier as LeBron and Kobe. But they're one behind Michael Jordan, who has 9 career buzzer beaters. and also his 10-point game streak, LeBron's 10-point game streak was under threat at one point during that game. Like he entered the fourth quarter with 3 points and no field goals made, and he barely scraped through, finished with 13 points. So now the streak is at 1,284 games, which includes the Bulls game just being as well. So I mean that's an amazing streak, but I'm a bit worried that it's getting to that point where LeBron is gonna like sort of teeter the line a little bit of that streak, and that streak could come to an end at any point. Now that it's getting older,
Yeah,
do you
man. I
think?
think.
Can you
Oh,
see like yeah?
he's like he's 40, bro. Like, look, we can't.
We got to give him a break.
Yeah, honestly, man. Like, it's so bizarre to me that he still gets like put under this lens that he's 25, 30. He's still got to perform at these elite level. Like, okay, sure, if you're gonna do the same, put like Vince Carter in the same bracket when he was, winding up his career. Or like put the other great players in the same lens. Like, you don't expect much of them. It's just solely because he's the GOAT. Like, they're just having him under this lens. But again, like, you make a valid point. It does kind of concern in terms of, yeah, man, like, he's old. That's just my take. He's just old. Let the man be. He's done 22 years in the league.
Yeah, he's done his bit. Like yeah, let's just let him. Yeah, let him ride off into the sunset easily
Yeah.
without Stephen A. or anyone else coming for him. Actually, let's just stay on LeBron because he appeared on the Pat McAfee show this week. Plenty to talk about from there. We'll try and sum it up as best as we can. Before that, though, I do want to bring up that he's bringing back Mind the Game podcast that he did with JJ Redick that led to JJ being his coach at the Lakers. He's going to bring it back with Steve Nash, which I couldn't think of anyone else better to host that podcast with, unless you're Kendrick Perkins, who said, why didn't he do this podcast with Richard Jefferson or Channing Frye or Draymond Green? I'm like, mate, you do realize we're talking about Steve Nash, two-time MVP, a 50, 40, 90 type of player. Yeah, so I mean, it's great to see that podcast come back. But did you catch his appearance on Pat McAfee? Like,
Yeah, man.
what did you take away? What was sort of the standout points for you?
I think, like, I'm just going to go back to the riding off in the sunset. This is probably the first time I've seen LeBron appear on like in the spotlight
Yeah,
and a little bit more like this. Like, he doesn't usually show up in this stuff because he's locked in during the regular season and during the NBA season. But he came to address a few points, which we'll touch on shortly. But just on the Mind the Game podcast, bro, I don't know if you've seen. I'd love to see Cam Johnson get into more. Like, he's doing the young
yes,
man in the three.
yes. I like his
Like,
insight.
yeah, like, I don't know if you've seen that episode with JJ Redick, and he broke down JJ
How
going
his
left to
shooting?
right, yeah, on the
Yeah, yeah.
shoulder, and like, wow, like, that's just next level stuff. So that'd be cool to see him getting a bit of spotlight down the line.
Mm.
But that was really interesting. I really like the fact that he defended Bronny. Like, he addressed the fact that journalists like Stephen A. have to criticize the games, and that's what they're there for. Like, that's, or criticize the players of the game. But when he starts attacking his son, like, that is a different card, because as a dad, he said, like, he doesn't care how many points Bronny scores as a dad, but as a teammate, he'd love to see him thriving. But again, getting all that criticism, so it's a fine line between son and teammate. So yeah, that was cool that he addressed that, and really goes to show the goat. He's the family man.
Yeah. A lot of the appearance was him basically like defending himself against a lot of the narratives that have come against him during his career. Like people saying that he flops all the time. I think he's in the bottom half of free throw attempts, and I think he brought up a story about how teammates, when they join him, they realize how much he doesn't get calls compared to when they actually play him, and they think that he does get heaps of calls as an opposing player. That's a pretty funny thing to bring up. And then he says he has no idea about the claim that he spends $1 million a year on his body. With what was it, those hyper chambers sort of devices or something. And then the other funny part was that he hints that the NBA may have rigged the 2003 draft in Cleveland's favor. Like, he said that when the ball dropped, he was thinking, oh, yeah, Cleveland just wants the home guy, like that sort of thing.
I mean, that's LeBron wearing
That's
the
pretty.
tinfoil hat, bro.
I mean, he can do. He's
Yeah,
he's
it's
gonna retire at some point over the next couple 2 to 3 years. So I guess he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
was
like
pretty
just
funny.
on that, like D Rose getting drafted to the Bulls as well. Hometown hero.
Mm.
So another instance like that. So who knows?
Well,
Potentially.
we'll wait for the Derrick Rose appearance
Yeah.
on Pat McAfee, and we'll see if he says something similar. But I mean, we can't ask David Stern. I think he's passed. So, I mean, but I'm sure someone who was back there in 2003 has an idea of what happened and can offer a tell-all. Yeah, yeah, great to see LeBron appearing on Pat McAfee. Adam Silver had his big board of governors meeting. Usually, I don't really care about this stuff, but it's what he said after during those press conferences that was quite interesting. The first thing is that he admitted that the All-Star game was a miss this season, which I applaud Adam Silver for just coming out and saying that
Yeah.
he knew that it was wrong.
Well, yeah. Just being
Yeah, good
accountable. I'll
on.
take it.
Yeah, easy. Um, what else did he say? He talked about this is an interesting one. The NBA exploring the idea of a European league with FIBA as its partner. So they're basically looking to be an alternative to the Euro League, which has all the great teams in Europe like your Real Madrids, your Barcelonas, your Bayern Munichs, your Paris basketballs. Because I think FIBA, from what I understand, FIBA and Euro League do not like each other. So FIBA's decided to jump ship with the NBA and partner up with them to try and form a league, an alternative to EuroLeague. But this isn't, again, from what I understand, is they're not going to bring NBA teams to Europe, so it's not going to be like the Boston Celtics against Real Madrid. They're basically going to form like their own clubs, or they're going to try and entice the likes of Real Madrid or Barcelona to join their European league as opposed to the current EuroLeague. So they're trying to do like a live golf type of thing
Yeah.
against the PGA Tour. That's sort of how I see or what I understand. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like, can you see something like that be coming to fruition?
I mean, we saw Live Golf take off, right? Like, so fair enough. Potentially as a good option. But something I did also read was I think NBA Association as a whole were going to keep 50% ownership of a team. So don't know how that works because they're projecting like $3 billion plus coming in annually from this new league. So if they invest in the right manner, I reckon it'd be cool, bro. Like maybe here's an idea: do like a relegation type of system. Like how do the in the English Premier League they've got the last three teams get relegated,
Yeah.
and the top two teams get promoted. So that'd be a cool thing to have. But again, stark differences in the gaps, but talent is growing globally, so it'll be cool to see these international guys that play against their American counterparts.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing because I think it's just going to be a separate EuroLeague. Like, I don't know if there's going to be any crossover between the NBA and this NBA Europe League that they're trying to put up. But again, like the details are still scarce, so I guess until Adam Silver says a bit more, we don't really know. We can only speculate. The other, I mean, we brought up expansion. The other expansion talks were around. He was asked about bringing pro basketball back to Seattle, which is something that everyone wants to see. I want to see it. I'm sure you want to see it as well,
Yeah.
Rav. He was asked about it. Adam Silver says he's very focused on expansion. The fact that we're not ready to make any public announcements with a specific timeline doesn't mean we don't care a lot about those fans. So I guess Seattle is still on the minds of Adam Silver, but not really. I'm not really sure how to take that quote.
Yeah, it's a
But
bit of
I,
a
yeah,
contradicting sentence, isn't it? Like you do care because it doesn't mean we don't, but like it's a bit contradictory. But hopefully, yeah, it'd be nice as well. Like have a 32 team league, so you can have like nice the top eight
yeah,
seeds and then not fall into a nice bracket.
yeah.
But yeah,
Assuming the
let's see what
32nd
happens.
team would be Las Vegas, right? I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
what people are
yeah.
suggesting.
The Las Vegas Mavericks.
Possibly. I'll say this though, like because there's two talks of expansion going on, I'm a bit worried that Adam Silver is putting too. Is all his focus is going to be on this European expansion rather than the local expansion with Seattle and Las Vegas. Like I don't think you can do both at the same time. And I think if he's going to prioritize one, he would prioritize the European one. Whereas I'm sure fans would love the Seattle Las Vegas expansion. So I don't know how that's going to work. If he can make it work, if he can be a magician and push both of those expansions at the same time, then great. But yeah, that's my only, I guess, downside to these talks about Seattle. But I would love to see hoops back in Seattle. Like the NBA was what a time it was when
Yeah, man.
Seattle Supersonics were around.
Yeah, it'd be brilliant. But again, it's just like the age old thing that we've been speaking about for such a long time. It's just money versus fans. End of the day, NBA is a business, but if you don't have the fans to watch it, like, why would you do that? Like, wouldn't you want to expand locally and then go international?
Yeah.
That
But the international makes sense as well because of the way that the game is going at the moment. Like, you've got so many international players, so you might as well take
yeah,
advantage of that. So I can
yeah,
see from
absolutely,
that point of
yeah,
view.
100%. I do see both sides, but it's most of the viewership for the NBA comes from local Americans, right? And we got a small part of us outside of the world because there's other sports like football is huge over there.
Mm.
So it's yes, it'd be cool to get a shorter sport involved, but again, wouldn't it, yeah, I don't know, it just makes sense to me when that Supersonic or Seattle market and the Vegas markets have been talking about for years, rather than pull the trigger on a new idea straight away.
But we'll see what happens with all those talks there from Adam Silver. In terms of other observations this week, I'll just bring up one. LaMelo Ball out for the season officially. Interesting season from LaMelo, from being talked about as an all-star starter to having not been named an all-star starter, and now he's going to have these minor procedures on his ankle and his wrist. So yeah, unfortunate for LaMelo, but hopefully he can bounce back next season and prove a lot of doubters wrong. So yeah, how about yourself, Rav? Any other observations that stood out to you this week?
I think Pace was blowing out the Wizards.
Why
Like,
does everything happen to the
I
Wizards?
feel like we've spoke about the Wizards more than the Clippers on this podcast.
I think our Wizards mate is like stopped listening after like the first couple of episodes because we were just throwing strays. But hey, we can tell him that we're being consistent here. We're still being throwing strays Washington's way.
Yeah, 100%. But man, that was an unbelievable outing, and like started taking shot clock violations with about a minute 30 left, so they could have jacked up their numbers per possession. But I mean, 162 to 109. That's just, I don't know how many nails in the coffin you could call it. But the one thing that kind of stood out, because I was looking at all the games, I guess, in past within regulation, the highest scoring games, a lot of them had someone score at least over like 30, 35 points. The highest points this game was Tyrese Halliburton with 29, and they had 9 players with over 10 points, which was pretty cool to see. And had a franchise best of 23 or 27 threes on like 57% shooting from deep. Like, imagine if the Celtics did that, bro. Like, with their volume and the clip that they're hitting it at. Like, it's been unreal. But yeah, that was probably one of the best observations. And also, I'm just going to jump straight into it. Jokic's assist.
How good?
Like, man. Again, similar, like, it's like Wizards on one end just copying the strays, but we're just giving so many flowers to Jokic. Like, man's just something unbelievable we've never seen before. Well, I wouldn't say never seen before, but just amazing at his like athletic ability, hidden athletic ability. That 360 pass to Gordon was just unreal, and just walks off like casually. Usually, you see like someone showing some sort of emotion,
Yeah.
but
And that was his first game back from an injury as well. Like, he had missed the past 5 games, and he casually comes back, does that no look assist, finishes with 37 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and they beat Milwaukee.
yeah.
Insane.
And
Great to have him back.
joins Westbrook and Oscar and Wilt Chamberlain is the only three other players to have over 30 triple doubles in a season. So that's sweet, mate. Like, MVP in my eyes, man, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, we've spoken about this, but SGA's having a historic run, sure, but yeah, Jokic in my eyes.
Awesome. I'll bring up this one last thing before we finish with quick fire. Doc Rivers this week saying he gets unfair criticism for blowing 3-1 leads. No, mate. There's a reason you get like ridiculed for this stuff, mate. You've done 3/4 of the job in a playoff series. get 4 wins, and then we wouldn't be talking about you, or we wouldn't be putting you down or anything. Like, I was gonna say, do you have anything to add? Because that's all I had got to say. I was just
No,
silly.
I mean, agreed. Like you've been going on like your running buzz lately, right? It's just like you going 3/4 of the way of a race and go, yeah, nah, done enough.
Yeah.
Everyone else can finish the line. Like, it makes no sense. Finish the job, like Coby said. Job's not done.
Well, according to Doc Rivers, it's done after 3. So, goodness me.
Uh,
We'll just
it
move
just
on.
frustrates me as you know. I hope it frustrates me, frustrates you just as it does me because we're both
For
Clippers
sure.
fans and we've seen the pain that comes with blowing those 3-1 leads.
Let's just move on to quickfire before we start getting a bit rattled. Let's just finish things off, rather, because we've talked about plenty today. So we'll just get stuck into quickfire. Ravi, I will count you down. 3, 2, 1. Ravi, who should the Grizzlies hire as their next head coach?
I think they stay with Tumas. Just split on that play style. It seems to be working. So let's see how it goes. Eli, name your top 3 players from the Australia New Zealand region to watch ever.
Ever. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to cheer a little bit. Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons before he lost the confidence, and then from New Zealand, I'll say Kirk Penny, like sharpshooter,
Yeah.
amazing. Rav, which playoff matchup are you looking forward to watching the most?
I'm going Pacers Pistons. I think it's a couple of young teams going at it. Should be good. Eli, what's your favorite Joe Johnson game winner of all time?
The one-legged 3 off banked one-legged 3 against the Nuggets in 2016. Young Jokic was in that game too, which is buzzy to watch. Rav, what's your game of the week?
Rockets Thunder on Saturday. How about you?
Pistons Thunder on Thursday. I want to see Cade against the Thunder. That should be good. And we'll wrap things up there. Rav, thank you so much for joining me again this week. And thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode 26 of These Guys Got Next. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok and all the other social media platforms, YouTube, Spotify as well. But until then, we got next and Matiwa.